Hey guys, Tom Barton from TomBartonSports.com here. We're going to talk about the NBA playoffs and who I think is going to win it all here. I think it's going to be a fantastic year. Look, this is the first time that I could ever remember that we have a first-round playoff matchup with two teams in the top, three or four, odds-wise, to win it all. So it's going to be fantastic. If you like the video below, please like, subscribe, hit that button. Make sure that you tell everybody. Also, go check me out at TomBartonSports.com. Tom Barton Sports over on Twitter, and TomBartonSports@gmail.com is how you can get in touch with me. So let's talk about it here. The NBA playoffs, I'm pretty pumped up for it. Look, I'm a guy that I like the NBA. I think that the NBA is it's a solid quality product at times, but generally speaking, the NBA gets it drags a little bit during the regular season. I always look at the NBA as 3 years, right? It's kind of right before Christmas, right? And then it kind of gets started. Then you have the regular season chunk and then the playoffs. The playoffs in the NBA are a completely different animal than everything else. And this year, I really feel like the NBA playoffs are going to be something really unique and really special because we have such huge teams at the top. Now, normally, what that would mean would be early round matchup, blowouts, and don't worry about it. But I don't see that this year because teams like Brooklyn actually had to have a play-in game to get into it. So you have Brooklyn, Boston, first round. Both of them, when you're talking about odds in Vegas and whatnot, they're in the top 5. Most people are picking either Brooklyn or Boston to represent the East. In the West, we have dynamic teams, young teams, lots of storylines going on in both. So let's take a look at them. We'll start with the West since I just mentioned it, right? Look, up at the top, you have the Phoenix Suns. Phoenix with 64 wins. They are the best team. They've been the best team all year long. Chris Paul goes down. They don't miss a beat. They go 11-4 without Chris Paul. But it really is the ascension of Devin Booker and who he's become that makes Phoenix such a dangerous team. Now, they are consistently good. They are the team that has been there all year long. When you look at their numbers and you look at, exactly who this Phoenix team is, they are 5th overall in offensive rating. They are 3rd overall in defensive rating. They absolutely can do just about anything that you want them to do out there. They should be the prohibitive favorites, and they are. They're trying to become the 15th team ever to lose the NBA Finals the year before and then come back and win the NBA Finals that year. The last team to do that, remember, Golden State won 73 games, then they added Durant, and then they wound up doing that. So it does happen, but I always go with the adage that it's very hard to climb the mountaintop twice. I think it's very, very difficult, especially in long playoff series, in a long playoff format, and the NBA has both of those, long playoff series and long playoff format. So my only knock on Phoenix, and it is nitpicking here, but my only knock on Phoenix is that, it's tough to go through this all again. It's tough to go back to do it again. But Phoenix should be the prohibitive favorite, and they are, and they've proven throughout the year they should be looked at as that dynamic team. Maybe we will be looking at them cutting down the net and lifting the trophy and saying, hey, you know what? We are that number 1 team, and we've kind of done it back-to-back years out of the Western Conference. The next team that we're going to talk about is the Golden State Warriors. Well, look, Golden State, to me, is the most dangerous team. It's dangerous because their starters played a total of 11 minutes together. Yeah, that's right. Look, Steph Curry and Draymond Green were waiting for Klay to get back. And here we go. Klay's going to come back. He's going to come back. We're going to play together. It's the band's back together again, right? Well, the day that Klay came back, Draymond got injured and went on the DL, right? If you remember, he was injured, but he still came out there because he wanted to have that moment of all 3 of them being back. Well, he was back, but he went down. They didn't play much time, only a couple of minutes together. Then, the day Draymond came back, here we go, the band's back together again, and Steph Curry went down. That day, he went down. So the 3 of them really haven't played together. The good thing is that Jordan Poole has stepped up his game. He's had, in March alone, 25 points per game, scored 20 points or more in 17 consecutive games. The guy has now become that plug-in player, but not only just a plug-in player. Look, he's not a complimentary piece. He can be a big-time addition here. And the difference with the big 3 playing, and we'll call them the big 3 in Klay, Curry, and Draymond, is that I'm not worried about rust with them because they've played together for so many years. Oftentimes, if you remember last year, if anybody listens to my radio shows, I went on rants last year. I didn't like what the Lakers were doing, kind of taking off, kind of saying, don't worry, we'll throw it all together. I didn't like what the Nets were doing. We'll be fine when the playoffs come. And it came back to bite both of them. I'm not having that feeling about Golden State this year, and I'm not having that feeling because they have a history of playing together, where the Lakers and Nets last year didn't have that. If they can get healthy and they can hit the ground running, this Warriors team could beat anybody. And I think that they should be looked at as that dynamic team. I'm not a big fan of Steve Kerr personally, but on the court, look, he's a pretty good coach. And that adds another element as well. Do they get the coaching advantage? We then talk about the Memphis Grizzlies. Memphis is an interesting number. And Memphis is an interesting team because we don't know about them, right? I mean, they're 24 years old, the youngest team that has ever had a top 2 record in the NBA since 1951-52 season when we started to count that. So you could say almost all time, right? You look at this Memphis team, and I think that they are getting overlooked a little bit because they are so young. We know about Ja Morant, and Ja Morant is the first guy to lead scoring and paint scoring that is at his size. He loves to go inside. He likes to bang it inside. That's great. But Memphis is more than just him, as proven by their 20-5 record when he isn't on the court. But I think too many people are looking at when he isn't on the court. But when he is, this team is dynamic. Memphis is not a fly-by-night team here. Memphis is not a team that just had a good run. Memphis is not a team that you just go, okay, they're going to be fine. No. Memphis is for real. They're just very young. And the question is, can that youngness be a positive or a negative? Sometimes teams, when they're young, they don't know the big stage that they're on. They don't get the impact that it is. And it can actually help them. But there are other times where it eventually will catch up with them. And I think Memphis can win an early series or two. But eventually, I think that will catch up with them. And that's the negative I look at there. Look at the rest of the teams in the West. Dallas, I can't have an intelligent conversation about that with Luka being injured. We don't know the extent of the injury. We don't know how much that would impact it. But I will say this. Look, I like Dallas. I like the makeup of Dallas. But even with a healthy Luka, I'm not putting them in the Western Conference Finals, and I'm certainly not putting them for an NBA title. So, while it affects them early on, and maybe you say, you know what? If Luka was healthy, he could take over a game or two, even a series or two. Yeah, you might be right. But I didn't liken them to a champion as it was. So with Luka hurt, I'm going to take them out of the mix. You take out the Spurs. I take out the Pelicans. Look, too early for the Pelicans. The Spurs, this is actually the second worst record that the Spurs have had under Coach Pop. They kind of backed into this thing. The Pelicans, look, since CJ McCollum has come over, they have a top 10 defense. And had they gotten a different draw in this thing, maybe they could have won a playoff series. Too early for them. Then we take a look at two teams, to me, that are linked at the hip because it's the expectations that I always seem to have. And this is more of a personal thing. Every year I come into the NBA playoffs, and I go, this might be the year that Denver does it. This might be the year Utah does it. And I like both Denver and Utah. I like both of their teams. Specifically, Donovan Mitchell, who, by the way, is only beyond Kevin Durant for active players in points per playoff series. The guy steps his game up in the playoffs big time. I like everything that this team does. I like their coach. I like their style. I like what they do. But and I don't want to sound harsh here, but I'm going to say it. They're mentally not tough. They lost a 21-point lead. They lost a 25-point lead just in the last couple of weeks. We remember their meltdown against the Clippers, right? So they're not a mentally tough playoff team as much as I want to root for them, and I think Donovan Mitchell can put this team on his back. They may go to the finals. They may win this whole thing, but I've been fooled once. I've been fooled twice. I'm not going to be fooled the third time. I just don't think it's their year. Same thing with Denver. Look, the Joker is fantastic. He's an MVP 2 years running. I absolutely love what he can do out there. But this team is a 16-point difference when he's not on the court. God, that is unbelievable. That is a massive, massive number. 16-point difference. So they need him to play. Well, in the playoffs, you try to get him into a foul trouble. You double, triple team him. You make him play that physical game. You try to break him down. You try to make sure that he's tired. These are all the things that playoff teams are going to do in a series. And when Joker comes out, they don't have anybody to replace him. Now, I know that Porter and Murray might be coming back, and that might change things up a little bit. If they do, sure. But I can't count on that right now. So Denver's another team that I look at and I go, could they win this whole thing? Yeah, I guess they could. They're kind of like Utah to me, where I'm sort of rooting for them a little bit, but I just don't think that they have enough to go over the elite teams. And the elite teams right now, Phoenix, potentially Golden State, and maybe even a Memphis team. So coming out of the West, for me, look, I want to root for, like I said, Denver or Utah. Just can't see it. I think Memphis, it's a year too early. I think they're a little bit too young. Kind of a fun team to root for to get there, a little bit too young. So that's between the Warriors and the Suns for me. I know that injuries are a problem, but I think the Warriors are on a mission. And I do believe that still Steph Curry is still the best player when he's out there. When he is healthy, he's still the best player on the court. I'm going to take Golden State to come out of the West. It's not anything I find bad in Phoenix. It's just that I think that Golden State's going to elevate their game just that much more. But I'm wide open to quite a number of scenarios in the West. I think it's wide open. Let's go to the East. Quite the same here in the East. For me, it's 4 teams, and unfortunately, I'm not including Miami in those 4 teams. Miami had the best record. Miami has a lot of good things running for them. And again, if you guys listen to my radio show, during the bubble, before the bubble even began, before the bubble year began, I had Miami winning the Eastern Conference and going to the championship. I like Miami a lot that year. I do like Jimmy Butler. I like what he can bring. I like Tyler Herro, who now is kind of like a 6-man. He's got averaging about 21 points per game. You have to like that. I love Miami's defense. That's what they're calling card is Miami's defense, defense, and defense. Here's the problem. In the East, you're going against not one superstar, but you're going against duos. And as much as I like Jimmy Butler, he's not Giannis, he's not Durant, he's not Embiid. And as much as I like Tyler Herro, they use him more as a 6-man, and he's not a running mate. And even if he was a running mate, we're going about the secondary guys being Kyrie, being maybe a Middleton, maybe a James Harden, or you want to go Tatum and Brown. They just don't have that structure. So Miami might surprise and win a series or 2. Miami might even get to the Eastern Conference Finals, but I don't see them getting over the hump. The Bulls, sort of the same thing. DeMar DeRozan, fantastic player, great year. I like him a lot. I think that he can do some special things here. The problem is they're a 23rd ranked overall defense, and I can't bank on a team with a bad defense. Much of the Eastern Conference has those kind of scenarios, right? Much of the Eastern Conference is built of that. And if I don't mention your team, I know I didn't mention Memphis. I'm sorry, I didn't mention Minnesota or the Clippers in the West. Look, it's just because I don't think they really have a chance. So in the East, when I sit back and I don't mention certain teams, like I said, I think it's the Big Four. I'm not going to sit here and waste time with Toronto. I'm sorry. I know Toronto won 48 games, and I know that they are right in the middle of this thing. But Pascal Siakam and Van Fleet, they just don't represent the big enough names, and you need that big name when it comes time. They have a 15th ranked offense that I don't think is going to get it done either. That's a big time problem. Atlanta has a 26th ranked defense. Charlotte has a 23rd ranked defense. I like defensive-oriented teams, and you don't have to be fantastic defensively. Just don't be terrible defensively. So that leaves us in the Eastern Conference with the Big Four. You got Embiid in Philly, you got Durant in Brooklyn, you got the duo in Boston, and of course you got Giannis in Milwaukee. Well, we'll start with the kind of team that everybody loves to talk about, and that's the Brooklyn Nets. Brooklyn is a talented team, and I use the word talented every time I talk about Brooklyn because their talent is undeniable. But they play a lot of close games. They play down to their competition quite a lot. You look at even in round 1 in the play-in game, you look at how they had that game well in hand, 20-point lead in the first quarter, came out smoking, and then chip away, chip away, chip away. That was down to a 5 or 6 point game late in the game. Now, it's an easy win against, who they went up against, but as the playoffs go on, do you think they could do that against Milwaukee? Do you think they can have breakdowns like that against, Boston? Can they have breakdowns like that in situations against the Sixers? No, they can't. And I do worry about that. Now, I think Harden and Durant together are fantastic, massively talented, all great. But their defense has taken a step back since Harden's been on the team. It's an obvious kind of thing that they certainly will. Durant can elevate a team anytime he wants, and Durant can be the best player in the NBA, and Durant can be the best player in the NBA playoffs, and the NBA playoffs and the NBA championship can certainly be owned by Durant and the Nets. I'm not putting it past them, but I don't like the road that they have to go. I don't love the way that they've been playing. I don't like that they don't really blow teams out. They kind of play down to their competition. Their defense is lacking. I'm nitpicking, but this is what we have to do when we're trying to pick a champion. Okay, let's go on to the next team, the Boston Celtics. Everyone's favorite team now. And since January 23rd, they have turned the corner and they have really looked really good. You look at Marcus Smart, maybe one of the best defensive players in the league. He could win Defensive Player of the Year the first time since a guards won, since Gary Payton the Glove back 96-97. So you do have good defense on this team. I like the duo. I think Tatum is ready to hit superstardom status. Brown is his running mate. That's fantastic. Boston has been red hot. They've been the best team in the East since January 23rd. There's no doubt about that. And Boston, being this red hot, can continue that. But Williams being out hurts them. He's a defensive player that now you already hear other teams going, all right, we're going to attack Al Horford. We're going to go attack that kind of situation. They know what they're going to go do. If Williams was here, I may pick Boston to win the whole thing. And I'm rooting for Boston specifically to win the entire thing. I kind of lean Celtics fan since my Larry Bird loving days, right? So I kind of lean that way. But I just don't think they have enough here. I think that they're missing that one element, and maybe that element is Williams. Because of that, I'm going to say they're a little bit behind the eight ball here. That leaves Philly and Milwaukee. Look, Milwaukee's a team. My co-host on my Las Vegas show on the weekends, Tim Unglesby, said to me on the air, he said, so you're going to like Milwaukee, right? Because Milwaukee fits every box that I usually like. I like experienced teams. I love Giannis. I'm a huge Giannis fan. I like dynamic playoff teams. I like guys that can play offense, can play defense. I like, at the end of the game, who's going to step up. And it all leads to Milwaukee, who is mentally tough, who's great at home, who has the number one player. It all leads to Milwaukee, and Milwaukee being that kind of team. It all leads there. But I do worry a little bit about Milwaukee getting back to that precipice, right? Getting back to that title run. Milwaukee didn't have a great season to start off. Now, Giannis was great. He finished the NBA third in scoring. He was going to be up for the defensive MVP, 30 points per game. Giannis is great. But the rest of the team, to me, seems to have taken a little bit of step back, specifically defensively. They are normally a top 10 defensive team. They finished 14 defensively this year. That's a little bit of a concern. Now, you can argue if you are there a Milwaukee Bucks fan and sit back and say, okay, Tom, wait a minute. Brook Lopez is coming back. And that should help the defense. And I'm going to say, you're right. You know what? That can be a pretty big addition here. And maybe that gets him back into the top 10. But I just told you I kind of like defense wins championships. And that's kind of a question. That leaves me with the Philadelphia 76ers. Philly absolutely can be, that kind of team. And when you have Harden and Embiid on the same court, Harden is going to take a step back. And by the way, I think I mentioned with Brooklyn, Harden, I meant Kyrie. Harden's going to take a step back, right? And you look at Harden on this team and you go, all right, Joel Embiid can really dominate anytime. And there's a huge case to be made that Joel should win the MVP. I still think it should be Joker, but Joel will come in second. He can put a team on his back and he can win this thing almost single-handedly. I like what Philly does. I like Philly's makeup. Generally speaking, I like the guys on Philly. But here's the thing with Philly. We haven't seen it yet. We have seen teams that look the part and they haven't gotten it done. We have seen failure from Philly, unexpected outings and bad games, bad periods, bad quarterback. They go through lulls, we'll say. And it could be in their past couple of years they go through lulls. It could be this year they go through lulls. It could be during the game they go through lulls. But I don't like lulls. So I think that Philly can be there. And I am probably overrating Philly, saying that it's kind of my team to get to the Western Conference Finals. But I think I almost have to defer and go to Milwaukee. I know they have defensive problems, but I'm looking at Lopez coming back and I'm saying I think he can be the fixer here. So Golden State, Milwaukee's kind of where I come to. I would not doubt that Durant and Kyrie can put on a show, and Kyrie can certainly put a team on his back. I just don't like the road they have to get there. I don't like that they don't play dynamically at home. They don't crush teams. I don't love the fact that they have to go through Boston originally in the first round. I could see them losing in the first round. So I can see Boston. I can see Brooklyn. Philly makes a lot of sense. But I'm going to go chalk here, and I'm going to go Milwaukee. I think Golden State can win this whole thing, though. What I do like about the NBA playoffs this year is that we're not talking about kind of one team or two teams and then everybody else. In the West, you have a legitimate three teams, and Denver and Phoenix could make it five that have a chance at this thing. In the East, I think it's a four-team race. You want to throw Miami in there? That's five teams. It could get really interesting really quickly. And I do expect a really good playoffs. If you're not an NBA fan, or you're kind of a casual NBA fan that didn't really watch the regular season, this is the time to watch. I think we are set for a tremendous playoff series. All right, guys, if you like below, please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe. Don't call me out on the Durant thing, on the Harden thing. I just misspoke. I meant Kyrie. Hey, he was in Brooklyn, right? I mean, he was in there for half the year. So please subscribe to the channel. Go check me out at Tom Barton Sports and Tom Barton Sports over on Twitter. If you like me, again, you could always write any comments there or comment below. It's tombartonsports@gmail.com. Have a very good day, everybody.